when we were in Nusa Penida, I found out that Chris is quite knowledgeable in one specific area. That's not the only specific area. He's very knowledgeable about startups, about business, about coding, about a lot of things.
Dinosaurs.
That's next podcast, or maybe a different one. But that was my second time when I had a journey with psychedelics on Nusa Penida. And then when I told to Chris, I was super excited as well. And then Chris told me that he has way more knowledge about it.
I would put it like that. Maybe a little bit more experience.
Much more experience. So tell me straight away what psychedelics mean to you.
Psychedelics to me. Let's start with the real definition where it comes from. It's like psycho or psychodelos, which is Greek for manifestation of the mind, and for me it is mainly that. I don't see it like per se, or first definition would be like as a drug or anything like that. It's a usually chemical compound that helps you to get into a certain very irregular but clearing state of mind. Or for that matter, also like something very wild in that regard. And
which are the most famous, well-known psychedelics out there?
From my perspective, I would say, it always starts with acid, LSD or LSD 25, lysergic acid diethylamide.
Say it again.
LSD, aka acid, which stands for lysergic acid diethylamide, which is basically, that's the German, I think actually translation, but lysergic acid diethylamide.
But basically, much clearer now.
It was the 25th derivative that Albert Hofmann synthesized based on ergot, which is funnily a fungi, not a fungi like you, but a fungi.
We all are fungi.
We are fungi, like mycelium. And it's a cousin basically of the other well-known, and especially on this island, psychedelic called magic mushrooms, aka psilocybin, which is the
that's what magic mushrooms, you can go psilocybin.
Psilocybin. There are also different chemical variations, but that's the main one, especially with magic mushrooms. And it's kind of, hence why the trip can be a very similar experience, very similar to acid. The only thing is, because it's organic, you can't calibrate this that well, as for example with LSD or acid.
When you say calibrate, what do you mean by that, please?
Basically know exactly what kind of potency and amount of the chemical compound is within either that mushroom head, that stick, or for that matter in acid and liquid or in crystallized form.
Because as I understand so far, so I had 3 trips so far
on magic mushrooms.
Yeah, and as far as I understand that with magic mushrooms, it's difficult if you just have plants in a plant version. Then one bag can be much stronger than the other bag. It depends like what areas is collected. And I was just actually hanging out with my friend who is
depends also when it's collected, like how long was it grown and the size of it. In this case, size matters.
So a Canadian friend, she told me that the best way to do it, to have these batches. So you get like a big amount of mushrooms, dry them, then mix them, like pulverize them and put them in capsules. Have you ever heard that before?
Yeah, totally. Perfect for microdosing.
Yeah, and then you know exactly what it is. So one, like these 3 capsules not going to be much stronger than the other ones because they all are mixed together.
It gives you, it's actually a very, very smart method in order to have some kind of like better calibration or determination of how much is in one.
Measurement of how much that could be.
Yeah, definitely.
And in your experience, would you agree that sometimes mushrooms can be stronger and sometimes the same amount can be totally different?
Of course. I mean, in this case, it also depends on different factors, such as, first of all, are you doing it on a sober stomach? The more sober you are, the less food you have in your stomach because you digest it first via the stomach acid. The heavier it can hit you. This is also why, like with magic mushrooms, if you are in any kind of bad trip or want to maybe tune it down, you could eat something, especially carbs or sugar-wise, and then actually it will decrease the trip experience.
It's like it dilutes stuff what is in your stomach.
Exactly. It doesn't happen with acid. It doesn't work with acid. It's like if you're on it, you are in for the ride and you can't stop it earlier.
Right. When you say acid, that's not LSD.
Sorry, acid, aka LSD, exactly.
Okay.
Or
So the first one you said was LSD. Second one is magic mushrooms, or aka
psilocybin.
psilocybin.
Yeah.
What else is there?
With acid, also there are different variations from the Hoffman formula to orange sunshine or white fluff.
I presume Hoffman, not the one who does the cold showers.
No, exactly different one. Yeah, not Wim Hof.
No, and that's Hoff.
Exactly, that's Wim Hof. No, Albert Hoffman, the founder, basically. There was
okay.
Bicycle Day was recently in April, basically when he founded it and came across it and then took a bicycle home and went on the first kind of like trip, at least in this context, on modern acid and told about that experience. Which
right. Okay, let's just cover the names of them and the biggest types. So we have LSD, we have mushrooms. What else is there?
DMT, but this is also we go more into like kind of the what they call like plant medicine segment. There is DMT, and then in terms of psychedelic plants, mescaline, peyote, ayahuasca is a mix of different, usually.
And that's very famous. Ayahuasca. That's the what people talk a lot.
I mean, it's about
and it's a combination of plants,
yeah. But that's kind of like it's a you could say like jungle family recipe cocktail and depending on where you are, if in Colombia, Peru, or wheresoever, you get different variations and recipes of it that bring you to that whatever state that you're seeking.
Yeah, and ayahuasca started originally like ceremonies. They used for ceremonies back for Native Indians. Was it?
Native Indians. I mean, in this case, Native Indians, you would say. I mean, there are three perspectives. I mean, ayahuasca specifically originates in Latin America. So you could say like Native Indian. If you say like Amazonian Indians, then you're absolutely right. But psychedelics, interestingly, no matter which culture on the planet you're talking about, from Central Europe, basically Druids back in the day, even like pre-Great Britain, kind of like England and even Roman times, or even further than that, basically we have, long story short, a very long human history of getting high together and getting into a higher mental state.
What was the book? There was one of the books that we're actually talking about that most of the religions, pretty much all the religions back in the days, they got like spiked up wines with some drugs and all that kind of stuff, and then they see those visions. And
you mean like Jesus roofied?
Pretty much, yeah. That's what I meant.
Can totally see that creep.
Okay, so did we cover the main types? What about the ones where they did? I think I've seen on TV. They go to the jungles and they get these toads or these frogs. Is it toad? And they lick them, or what is the deal there?
So that's usually DMT. Can also be a different kind of like poison with different chemical compounds. But most of the time it's the original one, or not the original one, because you find variations of DMT in plants as well as in animals. And in this case specifically, there are certain kinds of toads, such as the Sonoran desert toad, that usually the poison on the back that it secretes is being collected, dried, crystallized, and then smoked. That's basically one form of DMT.
That's
AKA.
a shit way to go.
AKA Bufo. I found it
crystallized and smoked.
I found it more interesting, like, how do you get there? Like, there's a toad. Oh, what is on the back? Let's smoke it. I'm out of weed.
I'm out of weed somewhere in the jungle. Like 1,000 years ago.
It's smoke a toad. I mean, I smoked banana, like skin and everything, but it's like, I haven't tried the toad yet in that context.
That's a good one. What are you having up, toad? Cool.
I mean, I met a German dude here who was on travels. He was befriended with a friend of mine from Taiwan who went out for dinner, and he basically offered me, "You want to smoke some termites nest?" And I'm like, "What? Termites nest?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, I went to Sulawesi like on this ferry, and there are these truck drivers and they all smoke termites nests." And I'm like,
what the hell?
And he basically like shows me this. I mean, it's tasted kind of like woody and kind of like smoky cigar-y, like nice, but it didn't give you like a high, at least from what I can tell.
Tastes like woody.
We smoked termites nest. So I mean, depending on where you are, right?
From Toy Story, let's smoke woody. You can do that too. Oh, that's insane. Like in Latvia, I remember there's this thing they do, well, not just Latvia, but probably most of the Eastern Europe or Northern Europe. They drink very strong tea, and there's a name for it. They call it chefir.
Sheffield,
Yeah,
okay.
but that's probably Latvian for that. I don't know what would be the English word for it. All it is, it's some kind of a one type of a tea, which is like a black, one of the black teas, and they just put a lot of bags in there and then make it very strong, and then they tripping from that shit. And then they even tell stories like how they throw tea bags in a prison so the prisoners can have some chefir and shit. I don't know how much that is true.
Let's get some tea here.
Yeah. So did we cover the all the main
I would say
psychedelics?
like the most prevalent ones. So just for the record, LSD, psilocybin, DMT in its various forms, and then in terms of psychedelics, peyote, ayahuasca. I'm definitely forgetting some. So
how does the weed goes in all of that? Weed is not considered to be psychedelic?
Not considered psychedelic. I mean, especially so the chemical compounds are CBD or THC, tetrahydrocannabinol or cannabinoids. And in this case, if you increase the dosage of THC, which, nowadays is quite easy, like with the high potent kind of like weed strains that you can buy, especially in the legalized kind of like countries and markets, you can get to that state, but I usually hear like actually from friends, especially also the not psychonauts, gets them mostly like in an anxious or kind of like paranoid state. It's like usually for the people that don't like to smoke weed, kind of like say, in my experience.
Yeah, they don't want to get paranoid. And then it's interesting to talk about how many different ways you can actually consume certain drugs. I like how I
don't like where this is going.
I approach this like very. This is very interesting how we get high. So weed, you can smoke it, you can eat it. So do the edibles. But when it becomes edible, it's apparently a different kind of chemical. Is it?
No. I mean, the chemical compound stays the same. Just some of them are, depending on which one it is, they don't lose any potency or anything of the chemical structure when you change the aggregate state, or when you cook it, chunk it down, or whatsoever. It basically stays potent. So
what do you say? What is better? Is it smoke it or it's eat it?
Depends on the chemical compound, right? It's like, so in this case, ayahuasca you drink, and DMT is one of the main ingredients, but it is the combination of several others that kind of like make that specific effect. So
I was meaning weed for weed specifically.
Sorry,
that's right.
I'd say it's like potato, tomato, doesn't matter. It's like, good solid.
Who says potato?
Potato.
I know tomato. I never heard potato.
That's true. I don't know. Let's look out for that.
Is that
unicorn.
the German thing?
It's a unicorn out there talking like that.
Okay, so it's kind of a preference basically for smoking weed or
I would
eating,
say so.
eating
it's like also, you with the edibles, you need to have them available, or you bake it, right? It's like, smoking is just like so much easier. Hence,
yeah.
I think the prevalence for smoking.
But also for edibles, it kicks in much later.
Ooh, that's the danger of it. It's like you can much easier miscalculate with edibles than with smoking it, I would say. My best experience was we put a gram of hash in Berlin into some wheat brownies that we baked, and we were unexpected the potency of that specific hash that we had, and we were, the girlfriend of mine and me were like both high for solid 26 hours. And I remember the next day I had to go to a dinner party, and I was still stoned like crazy, and she also called me panically from the family dinner. I was like, I'm still stoned, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, we miscalculated.
Tell to some listeners who are total noobs or don't know much about weed, what's the difference between weed and hash?
One is the regular plant, kind of the pollinated plant. That's the bushy buds they talk about, whatever, like names from Orange Kush, Pineapple Express, or
Pineapple Express. That's the famous one. That's the biggest one.
Totally.
Thanks, Joe Rogan. Oh, not Joe Rogan. Seth Rogan. Shit.
Seth Rogan.
And Joe Rogan as well. Thanks for all the weed advocating.
Yeah, stop brown nosing. And basically, hash kind of like, the classics Moroccan is the what is it? Not cream tart pollen, but basically the little kind of like pollens that you then munch together, which then looks like chocolate almost, and it's like more creamy, sticky, and more prevalent, like in North Africa and the Arabian Peninsula, and everywhere it's hard to smuggle.
There you go. Okay. what else can we talk about? Psychedelics. There's a lot we can talk about psychedelics.
I mean, one thing is I would always say for those who are not so acquainted, like never be afraid of trying it. Just always remember the most important rules, which is mindset and setting. So always like be in a good mindset in order to try to know what you're doing and do it sober. That's also one very important factor. Like no other substances involved as well. And then the setting, that if you're safe, you're good, do it with friends or maybe with someone who has the experience and doesn't need to be a shaman or something.
Setting or setup? Which one?
Definitely setting, not setup. I mean, depends on the setup.
Yeah, no, that is true, definitely. The first time I tried it, and to be honest, like I was surprised it wasn't as crazy as I thought it was going to be. Some part of me felt like I'm almost like high, like weed, a lot of giggles and just a very, very good mood. But yeah, there were certain things were different.
So you went to the first layer, let's put it like that.
Yeah, I know. I just tipped my toe. I just tipped my toe in this. So what was the first time and what was your first experience with psychedelics?
First time, first experience. I mean, first time wasn't really spectacular. It was like I found some dried mushrooms in my sister's room when I was, I think, like 15 or so, and then took it with her ex-boyfriend and some other friends. That was just like an interesting, enlightening, delightful experience. Nothing too crazy. But definitely much crazier, some slightly irresponsible but funnier situations unfolded in the years afterwards. I don't know, it's like, for example, I now think twice before dropping 400 mics of acid in Ho Chi Minh in the morning at 6 a.m. before the Monday traffic starts.
You do you think twice? Okay.
Yes, I wouldn't do it again, let's put it like that.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, she was a super hot, super cool girl from Kiev, and that was exactly the rookie mistake. We took it at 4 a.m. first tap, and like didn't feel it like after 1.5 hours. So like let's do another one. Maybe it's gone bad. Then we took another one, and then like literally 3 hours later, it hit us like double as hard. That was really funny.
Should we do the shout out to the super hot girl from Kiev?
Oh, definitely. Yes.
What's her name?
Her name is, let me think. Oh my God, now I'm on the spot.
Kiev, we love you.
With R. It's a beautiful woman with R.
With R. Rebecca?
No. Rufina.
Rufina. Oh, interesting name.
It is.
Okay. That was the first experience, and then like how did you decide to kind of learn more about it? When so you enjoyed your first experience?
I mean, I enjoyed my first experience, and for me it was, I mean, I was definitely that came much later. I would say like I was a really naughty kid, especially in my Berlin times where I lived almost like 6-7 years in a row. I mean, over the course of different years, and I like was definitely heavier on the chemical side for a long time before I went deeper into psychedelics.
Yeah. That's what I was about to ask also, like when you thought that you would like to study about this, like to learn more about it. I don't know whether you would actually take a book and read about it or you just talk to people and find out something interesting.
I mean, I would say like three ways. One is when I started becoming serious about it, because I definitely had like more, I would say like my Berlin days, definitely like a coke addiction. That was the nasty one. Took some time. I mean, like almost every weekend, that kind of like thing, like typical Berlin, because in Berlin everything's accessible, available, and parties all the time. So it's easy to like do this work hard, play hard thing, and you play really hard, but also very fun. But basically that was kind of and I literally had like I had a not a nervous or mental breakdown, but like first time in my life, like a depression. I never had that, and it hit me hard. Like total darkness.
Because of what you were taking at the time, or just lifestyle mainly?
All of it. It was like, for me, it's usually like a perfect storm of several factors that come together. Yeah. For me, it was I did a job in a cool company with awesome people, but I didn't like what I was doing. It was like this startup hustle, like kind of like, you know, go big or go home, or work your ass off.
And I bet that whoever would see you having that situation would blame drugs straight away, or would blame psychedelics, instead of saying like, well, he has this and this going on and that going on, that's why he has depression.
I'm not sure. I mean, psychedelics first I didn't take as much back then. It was like quite more the very rare exclusion, or how do you say, basically like much more rare. I would take psychedelics, and it was much more like just on the chemical side, because it's kind of like Berlin is a very chemical city in that regard. Like especially, or like every big city, I have a feeling. It doesn't matter if you're in New York, Madrid, Paris, London, or Berlin. It's mostly all the same. You work a lot during the week, and then on the weekend you party, and especially like the urban nights.
Yeah, same thing in London, UK, the same thing. All the business centers, everyone.
You go to a toilet, you find everywhere the residues. I mean, what is it in London? Even like the amount that you find in the toilet flush, kind of like that they analyze, kind of like was already saying like that is much higher on average amount that of cocaine is being used in the UK or in London specifically than anywhere else.
What is cocaine?
Cocaine.
Because I also wanted to tell me what are the main like groups. Like there's psychedelics. Yeah. So then weed is just one separate group. Is there anything else to weed, or that's one separate animal?
I mean, it's the chemical compounds. It's like you have to approach it from but I mean, I'm not a biochemist, so basically for me it's lots of knowledge that I read about or like personal interest. But as far as I can tell. I mean, you have the THC, the CBD. We have certain receptors, especially for CBD, THC in our body. So basically, we are made for interacting with certain kinds of chemical substances. And another perspective, actually, the human body is theoretically, or point of view, a constant drug factory. I mean, endorphins, serotonin, dopamine. I mean, we produce all the time certain kinds of substances in our body, and these either, chemical compounds that we interact with trigger certain kind of like either
adrenaline. Is adrenaline one of them?
I mean, it is a chemical compound, right? But it's not I wouldn't call it like to the regular kind of like what is it, happy hormones or whatever, such as serotonin, dopamine, or for that matter. But it is. I mean, it is a
because in the end of the day, we are all addicts already. In a sense, because I'm addicted from dopamine, idea being on stage, having that approval, having that like on your Facebook, having that, making that craziest jump and backflip, and that's dopamine right there. So you're already junkie without taking anything.
I mean, we are. It's like a base protocol of kind of like life where you, through in this case, chemicals, biochemistry, which stands so much at the core. Kind of like make us do certain things, change our behavior or routinize certain behaviors or behavior patterns, right? It's the evolution's kind of like framework in order to create behavioral patterns or behavioral patterns. I mean, for you to procreate, you enjoy having sex. If you wouldn't enjoy it, you wouldn't procreate. So we need to make that monkey really happy when he has sex, and especially different one.
Are you referring to me that I am the monkey?
Both of us, we're both two monkeys basically sitting here. And then, I mean, if you would wank or like masturbate, it doesn't give you the same pleasure as interaction like with a partner, where you actually excrete oxytocin, which you don't do if you would just like wank.
Oh, really?
Off. So hence the cooperative experience of sex or like having intercourse.
I feel pretty much the same. I don't feel much difference. Hence, I'm not bothered about dating.
Talk about your Kundalini levels.